Regard, folks. My name is John Hancock, and I'm one of the founding fathers of the United States of America. You may know me by my famous signature stamped on the Declaration of Independence, but we will talk about that later, my dears. First, I would like to tell you a little about myself, but just a little. I'm not like Washington, who loves to talk about himself. Okay, let's continue. I was born on January 23, 1737 in Braintree, Massachusetts. I was raised by my aunt and my uncle. I must admit, we were quite wealthy. Everything was looking good for young John, but in 1765 the British began to raise taxes, and that is when the problems began. I came into direct conflict with the Redcoats when they seized my ship the Liberty in 1768 on the grounds that it has illegally unloaded cargo without paying taxes. Those bastards! In 1774 I was elected president of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, which declared itself an autonomous government. Predictably, my revolutionary activities made me a target for the British authorities. In fact, in 1775, my friend Samuel Adams and I barely managed to escape being arrested in Lexington, Massachusetts, and it was all thanks to Paul Revere, who entered the city on a horseback screaming, "The British are coming! The British are coming!" like a crazy person. Hmm, what a nice guy. In May 1775, I was elected president of the Continental Congress, which was meeting in Philadelphia. The next month, Congress elected George Washington as commander of Continental Army, even though I was the perfect man for the job. But anyway, I don't even care. On July 4, 1776, Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, a document drafted by my friend Thomas Jefferson, stating that the 13 American colonies were free from British rule. And I signed it first with my majestic and elegant signature. On your face, Washington, you and your wooden teeth. Sorry. But seriously, we fought 8 long years. Thousands of brave men gave their lives to obtain the freedom that every human deserved. Each and every one of us put a brick to build the foundations of democracy that will later spread throughout the world. Now, my dears, we need to talk about one of the battles that shaped the independence of the 13 colonies, and that was the Battle of Bunker Hill. On June 17, some 2,000 British forces under the command of Major General William Howe and Brigadier General Robert Pillotte landed on the Charlestown Peninsula, then marched to Breed's Hill. An interesting fact is that the battle, although it is called the Battle of Bunker Hill, was fought almost entirely on Breed's Hill. As the British Army advanced in columns against my compatriots, Prescott, in an effort to conserve our limited supply of ammunition, reportedly told his men, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." When the redcoats were within several dozen yards, our army let loose with a lethal barrage of musket fire, throwing the British into retreat. After reforming their lines, the British attacked again, with much the same result. Prescott's men were now low on ammunition, though, and when the redcoats went up the hill for a third time, they reached the redoubt, and engaged the Americans in hand-to-hand combat. The outnumbered Americans were forced to retreat, but not out of fear or cowardice, but because of lack of ammunition to fight. However, by the end of the engagement, the casualties of the Battle of Bunker Hill were high. Patriot gunfire had cut down some 1,000 enemy troops, with more than 200 killed and more than 800 wounded. More than 100 Americans perished, while more than 300 were wounded. The British had won the so-called Battle of Bunker Hill, and Breed's Hill and Charleston Peninsula fell firmly under British control. Despite losing our strategic position, the battle was a significant moral builder for our inexperienced army, convincing us that the patriotic dedication could overcome superior British military might. Additionally, the high price of victory at the Battle of Bunker Hill made the British realize that the war with us would be long, tough, and costly. And that's all I have to say about the Battle of Bunker Hill. And with this, I say goodbye.
Hello, I'm George Washington, and I'm going to tell you the story of the American independence, the Revolutionary War, and a little bit about myself too. I'm George Washington, the first president of America. I was born on February 22nd, 1732, in the English colony of Virginia. I became a wealthy family, and I owned several plantations. I worked 45 years in public service, 45 years before the country even existed. In 1752, I joined the military. I was promoted to colonel, but a language miscommunication resulted to me confessing of a murder I did not commit. The First Continental Congress was in 1774. I gathered people to discuss the issue of England. No taxation without representation. Americans had no voice in the British government, but they were determined to defend their rights. That's when the war started in 1775. I was appointed to General and Commander-in-Chief. The colonies want to be free from the British rules, so on July the 4th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence is signed by 8 men. I personally couldn't vote for independence in the First Continental Congress because I was in the field fighting against the British. I favored, however, and I read it to my troops. I was in New York, but I was very supportive and I was very persistent for the long years of the war. The thing that stands the most for me in the Declaration of Independence is that all men are created equal, and the government is created to represent people. Myself and the rest of the founding fathers saw that the people were free and able to make their own decisions. I led the revolution. I assumed command with my truth. I felt miserable at the beginning, but I had confidence that I would win. Nobody believed in me. They saw me as a traitor, but then I gained their trust. I had my ups and downs. I was not a military genius as most say. I lost more battles than I won. Speaking of battles, I want to talk about the Battle of Brooklyn on 1776. We were in Brooklyn, trapped, and I needed time and a miracle. And the wind was my miracle. I took my fortune and evacuated and returned immediately to surprise the British. I had joined Colonel Glover, a tenacious and disciplined man. We faked being there by leaving fires. We went back and forth the East River. That was the reason that we could fight again and again. I would always figure out the most important thing to do. I was not easily distracted. I was not quick, however. I would study the problem and then pursue. At this point, I thought if we would have a French alliance, we would win with their navy as well. I wanted to attack Clinton in New York, but the French said they had a better idea. I sent fake dispatches to look like we were going to attack Clinton, but we, the French, and I secretly went to Virginia. We then landed to Yorktown and we tightened around the city, and Cornwallis surrounded a month after. People often ask me, what do I think of George III? I would go to his parties, be near him, maintain close to him, but when the Americans first complained about taxation, I was against the Parliament, not the king per se. The king became an issue to me until we declared the independence. I agreed George was the problem. The final battle was really sneaky, and he won me the 6 stars. In the war, I was not a fan of George III, but in the end, I did not hold grudges over him. The people practically begged me to be president. I was sworn on April the 30th of 1789, and I established what an American leader should be. I set up a cabinet of advisors and gave an annual check to keep my power in place and gave up my power after just 2 terms.
Hello, my name is John Adams. I was born on October 30th, 1735, in the city of Braintree, Massachusetts. My parents were John Adams and Susanna Boylston. At age 16, I earned a scholarship to attend Harvard University and got my master's degree a few years later. You probably know me for being the second president of the United States. Nope. Today, I want to talk to you about my participation on the American independence and how did I get to be the second president of the United States. It all started back in 1765. If you remember, that was the year the Stamp Act was declared. People got to know me due to my response to the British Parliament. I just thought it wasn't fair that we were deprived of our basic rights. I suggested that every colony should have their own independent government, and on May 15 of that same year, it was approved. Now, this is where the story gets more interesting. My proposal of independent governments was the setting stage for the formal passage of the Declaration of Independence. On June 7, 1776, I seconded the proposal of Richard Henry Lee's Resolution of Independence and backed it until it was adopted by the Congress on July 2, 1776. Along Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Robert R. Livingston, and Roger Sherman, we wrote the first draft of what would be the Declaration of Independence. It was approved on July 4th. The next year, I traveled to France and Holland to negotiate the Treaty of Paris, which later brought an end to the Revolutionary War. I remained in Europe for almost 10 years. Yes, hi, hello. I'm Abigail Adams, and I just would like to add that during that time, I had to raise and educate our kids alone. I took care of the family business and I developed a farm system in which I proved that slavery was unnecessary, while at the same time, I advocated for women's rights. Remember the ladies. When I came back in 1789, I was placed on the ballot for the first America's presidential election, and yes, as expected, Washington got the highest number of votes. He was elected president and I was designated vice president. I thought perhaps I had chances of winning the next presidential election, but no. Washington won again, god damn it. Finally in 1996, I was elected the Federalist nominee for president, while Jefferson was playing on the Democratic Republican Party. This time, I won the elections, becoming the second president of the United States, and the rest is history.